right. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Profit Minded Business Podcast. Today we're joined by a couple of great guests and, of course, our co-host. The reason why we come together just is a place for small business owners to come and learn from one another. Listen, small business owners, we suffer silently. A lot of times we go through, pitfalls, successes, and oftentimes that roller coaster ride we can't always share with people around us for a lot of reasons. So we wanted to bring together a community of sorts where we can share casual conversations with business owners about their journey, about what they've gone through, so that someone listening, yourself, will pull away something from our episode that inspires, drives, or at least helps you just realize that you're normal for experiencing things. So today we're joined by Michael Rhyne, who we go by Mike, and he has started a company called SafeRide America. It's a nonprofit. It's a wonderful story. I can't wait for you guys to hear about it. And of course, we're also joined by Lynn Spencer, our co-host today of Killingsworth Spencer CPA. And of course, I'm Corbin Cook, your host, and I run S&B Strategy Consultants, and I'm a partner with Auxilium Group. So, Michael, tell us about your story.
Well, SafeRide America has been around in some form or fashion for almost 20 years. In 1999, I owned a limousine business, and I would have some of my limousine clients ask me to rent the driver instead of the limo. And my response was, what are you going to do to the driver? And they said, well, we just want him to drive us around in our Mercedes-Benz. We've got a dinner party at 6, and then we've got a couple other parties we want to go to, and at midnight we want to go to this club, and at 3 in the morning we want to go to Waffle House, and we don't want to spend $100 an hour on a limo when we can just ride in our Mercedes in the back seat. So we'd rather pay your driver $25 an hour and do that. So what that gave me this idea of this driver rental business as a for-profit idea. And I started Googling around trying to find a for-profit driver rental business that already existed, and it just wasn't out there, which that caused me concern because I was like, this is such a simple concept. How could this business not exist? Right. And it took me really many years to truly understand why the business didn't exist. And a combination of Mothers Against Drunk Driving success and getting DUI laws passed has changed the way that we think about driving our vehicles and letting others drive the car for us. And then also just the old school mentality, of how people felt about their car is a very personal thing. To drive someone's car, it just seemed like, what do you mean drive my car? No, it was almost like, if you asked them to wear their underwear, no, of course not. Get out, get away. You're not driving my car. So that's changed over time. Yeah, and sure. As I pursued the driver rental for-profit business, I stumbled into this guy named Jim Congable in Richmond, Virginia, who had this nonprofit organization called the National Designated Drivers Association. And he rented drivers to get people and their cars home for free from bars and restaurants that paid him a monthly fee of $400. And very long story, he convinced me to open up a chapter of his nonprofit in Atlanta, and it took me probably 6 months to a year to convince my first bar owner to pay me the monthly fee. And it was really only because he was the older brother of a guy I went to high school with, and that was kind of my in. But once we launched the service, which was at Vickery's on Crescent Avenue in Midtown, the owner of Leopard Lounge, who I'm still friendly with 20 years later, literally found me in the street and said, I want to be a part of this program. And within 30 days, the entire Crescent Avenue scene, 14th Avenue scene, was part of the program, and we started to learn about the business and the process while I went through the learning curve of transitioning my thinking from a for-profit limousine company to a nonprofit business. And probably the biggest obstacle I had to overcome was the income potential of working inside of a nonprofit. I think is most people just think that if you work at a nonprofit, you're getting a subpar income, or you're volunteering.
Usually it's like they believe you're working for a mission.
Correct.
Therefore, it's okay to take a lesser income or to, whatever
Correct.
case is
Or
in
nothing.
mind.
I mean, there's a lot of nonprofits that nobody gets paid at all, anything, and they're all wanting to do that, but they all have other jobs that are supporting that, and the nonprofit's more of a hobby or a passion for them, something that they do on the side.
Level. Right.
And so I had to ask Jim. I said, Jim, I'm a nice guy. I want to help. I believe in making a difference. But how does the word millionaire and nonprofit fit in the same sentence?
Right.
And he pointed out at the time that the president and CEO of the Red Cross at that time, her annual salary was $800,000 a year, and the highest paid executive at this time is the president of the Shed Aquarium up in Chicago, who makes a base salary of $6.1 million a year. So the income potential does exist. There's a couple of rules that come into play. Generally speaking, you can earn as much in the nonprofit world that you could earn doing the same thing in the for-profit world.
Now, I guess even when I choose a nonprofit, I want to know how much of my money is actually going towards the mission.
Exactly, and those were all questions I had to kind of understand, because I always, would be solicited to donate to this cause or that cause, and then there's the president of the company that's flying away in a Learjet, and you're like, did I just pay for that Learjet, or did I help some children? And that's what caused me to kind of learn and understand and study what I call free money in traditional nonprofit fundraising. Most nonprofits have their annual gala. They're selling cookies. They, have sad commercials on. You're getting a phone call. We're broke. Send us money.
Right.
And I really didn't like doing any of those things, and I wanted to come up with a way for a nonprofit to be self-sustaining without being reliant on that free money. When you get that money, people question you. I mean, if you're getting all this donated money and government grants and corporate grants, and then you're paying yourself 7 figures and that just looks weird. I don't care how you put it out there.
Doesn't matter what the mission is.
Right. So I was like, well, how can a nonprofit be self-sustaining? I mean, how can a nonprofit survive without relying on that money? And the answer was through social enterprise. And so I remember the first time I even heard the concept of social enterprise, which is the concept of a nonprofit owning and operating a for-profit to generate funding to support the mission.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, wow, how does that work? I even thought, then there was the phrase social entrepreneur, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be one of those. And I said, the ladies would love social entrepreneur. And so it took me a while to understand how that concept worked. And so what I learned is that nonprofits can own and operate an endless number of for-profit businesses.
Okay.
The question is does the earned income, and when I say the word earned income, that's nonprofit speak for profit. So earned income and profit, they're the same thing. It's what happens to the money that's different. In the nonprofit world, that money goes to further the mission. In the for-profit world, that money is used to distribute to shareholders.
Sure.
And
so how does it? So it sounds like you're saying that the nonprofit can own and operate for-profit companies. Is that what you just said?
That's correct. So I'll give you some examples. Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream has a nonprofit franchise program. So a nonprofit can go and pay a reduced franchise fee, open up a brick and mortar store, sell ice cream, and then the profits from that ice cream sales goes to help children or develop this or save the dogs, whatever the mission of the nonprofit that owns that business. The question is the earned income coming from an activity that furthers the mission? So if the earned income comes from the activity that furthers the mission, then the revenue comes tax-free into the organization. If it doesn't further the mission, like selling ice cream, you have to pay what's called UBIT tax, which is unrelated business income tax. It's about 20%, and you're taxed. And that's a unique component to the SafeRide model, is our service that we offer 7 nights a week, to where we drive people in their cars home, furthers our mission. So all that revenue comes into the organization tax-free, which of course gives me an operational advantage that a for-profit can't even.
So let's go back to that. So your actual, what you deliver as a service offering is
Correct.
that. So you've got people who are at the bars, and you told me something that alarmed me. Number one, is that the rules for getting a DUI or a sort of DUI are different now than they used to be.
That's
Will
correct.
you just educate us on really why you were so important in this space?
Absolutely. So I think if you ask the average person, how much alcohol has to be in your bloodstream in order to get a DUI, everybody's going to answer 0.08. And for a long time, 0.08 was the BAC, or the blood alcohol content that you had to have in your bloodstream to get a DUI. If you were under 0.08, you were thought to be safe. Well, about 2 years ago, they created a law called DUI Less Safe. And the way that reads is you could have any amount of alcohol, and I'm talking any amount of alcohol in your bloodstream, combined with evidence you operated your vehicle unsafely. Touched the line, ran a stop sign, fender bender, speeding. I mean, it's not hard. And of course, then there's at the officer's discretion, and we all know how that plays out. And so people will go out and they'll have a drink or two. And here's how that trap works. They go out, you have a drink or two, you think you're fine.
Right.
You jump in your car, you get pulled over. I don't think as humans we want to lie to the cops. I just don't think I don't know. You just don't want to lie to the cops.
Have you been drinking tonight?
Right, yeah. And so you don't think you've done anything wrong, so you volunteer that you've had 1 or 2 drinks at the bar. And the next thing you know, you're in jail with a DUI Less Safe, which is, it costs the same, looks the same, smells the same. Everything about DUI Less Safe is identical. It's just another way for you to be in trouble. The answer is you never admit you've had anything to drink ever to anyone.
Okay. Oh my goodness, this is the takeaway already from this podcast.
One takeaway.
I did not know
because
about
if you hand them the evidence, you're going to jail. I mean, the second you've said you've been drinking, the amount you consumed is irrelevant. You are going to go to jail. So what I would tell my daughter is never admit to anybody you've ever had any alcohol, because you're just handing them the evidence they need to arrest you.
Now, there's a lot of professions that any kind of impropriety on this end is going to wreck their career.
Yes.
And
that's a huge thing. We have a corporate outreach and awareness program where we're trying to reach out to the businesses here in the local community to not only educate them on the DUI laws, but explain the options that they have, through SafeRide services. And it's very costly. If a company has an employee that gets a DUI, in some businesses it's immediate termination. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you're a real estate agent, it can jeopardize your licensing. If you're an airline pilot, you're done. You're in the military, you're done. You're any kind of law enforcement, you're done. If your job requires you to drive, you're done. And so it's very costly for a for-profit to lose an employee to DUI. To replace them is very expensive, especially if it's a key employee.
So it dawned on me then that, listen, you shouldn't lie to the police.
Right.
You just shouldn't take that chance, right?
Correct.
So that's really where you come in.
That's correct.
So tell us a little bit about how you work from somebody is at the bar, they were going to be DD, but then they decided, you know what, I'm just going to have a couple of drinks.
Yeah, so when I ran into Jim Congable, 18 plus years ago, his philosophy, why do people still drink and drive?
Right.
We all know we're not supposed to do it, but yet we have a tendency to still do it. Why is that? And his anecdotal evidence suggested 2 things. A, I don't want to leave my car. B, I don't have money. So his idea was to eliminate those 2 excuses to drink and drive. And so he's created this volunteer program where on Fridays and Saturdays they would drive people and their cars home for them from bars and restaurants using these volunteers to accomplish that. And they charged nothing. They was called tip only, meaning you just paid whatever you wanted to help us offset the cost of the fuel and wear and tear of our vehicles.
Right.
So I started that model here in Atlanta, and over time, these volunteers, they kept coming back weekend after weekend, and the reason is because they were pocketing, a couple $100 a night in cash from all these people that we were driving home.
So wait, so the tips weren't actually going to offset any business?
Not at that time. Again, I was figuring these things out. I felt because it kept these people coming back, and I needed bodies in there to get stuff done.
Yeah,
I'm
like, this is great. Oh, you
right, because the bars were paying me, so I saw the bar income as the.
Well, that's sustaining the business,
right? But I saw this other money sitting out there, and I didn't. But then I was like, well, how does a nonprofit run a for-profit? So it kind of got me into this whole thing, and I had to figure all that out.
Right.
And at a point, we recognized that, to me, telling the public we were volunteers when I went home that night with $200 in cash, that's a lie. I mean, you can't build any business on a untrue.
Yeah, sure.
And then we even had some volunteers that were embellishing their personal situation to get better tips about, my child has cancer. It was ridiculous. It really kind of got out of control. No, but that's just human nature. It's funny how human nature is. So I had to kind of figure out this isn't going to work. So we started looking into the court-appointed community service aspect as a source to be able to get volunteers to come in and help us in the free labor, which is a key component to how the model works. And then that was it. And then we were concerned about the volunteer, the community service people keeping the money and this and that and the other. And over time, it eventually became a kind of a meshing between a paid employee combined with a community service person, and that's how we operate now. Mm-hmm. So when somebody requests SafeRide service, they want their car driven home, they use our app or they call the office to make the request. When my team of drivers shows up, my driver, who's in a tie and a vest, name tag, gets into your car with you, drives you home, and the community service person or volunteer just follows behind as a chase car. They're kind of in the background of the whole thing, since we aren't a taxi.
Well, you have a paid person who is trained and is underneath. Really part of your team, and they're the ones that are in the uniform.
That's correct.
They're the ones driving the person's car.
That's correct.
Home that way, so. The community service person is really just driving the other car, following them back, because they have to arrive and leave two cars.
Yeah.
And who owns the chase car?
That's their community service personal car.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're using their own car, their own gas, their own wear and tear, their own insurance. And that's the most expensive piece of it, which, of course, allows the nonprofit to have huge margins. So our earned income from each ride is substantial.
And what's neat about it is that you're based here in Atlanta, and so there's certain areas that if they were to, right now they could go to their Android or their Apple phone and download the SafeRide app.
Yep, it's called SafeRide Now, all one word, no spaces.
SafeRide Now, all one word, no spaces. Download the app and they pull it up. Here they are. They're out and about. They were like, gosh, that's the thing that if I were to ever drive on one or two drinks, it would be because I don't want to leave my car behind.
Yep.
So here they are. They set it up. What is the cost comparison to, getting an Uber home?
Right. So we don't charge a pickup fee. We don't charge mileage. We don't charge a booking fee. It's simply $2 a minute.
Interesting.
And the clock starts when your wheels start turning. Clock stops when we pull in your driveway. So if you live 10 minutes away from the bar, it's going to be roughly $20 for you to get you in your car home. You live 40 minutes from the bar, it's $80.
Wow, that's amazing. So, and there's no surge pricing or any goofy
no surge pricing.
Traffic got us, and so therefore
no. And the way we kept the integrity of not letting money be an excuse to drink and drive, because we did this free thing to try and take money off the table. So I struggled with, how do I keep that intact? How do I keep that a part of our mission?
You're still trying to remove that excuse.
Correct. And the answer that we came up with was what I call pay us later. So we never make money an argument with anybody. So if somebody has a problem with our fee or they don't have money, we have some customers that are just literally too drunk to pay us. They go inside and they just pass out and they're done.
But they're safe.
But they're safe.
Job's
That is
intact.
correct.
Their professional career isn't ruined.
That's correct. And so that's what we do.
For
is
20 or whatever it is, $2 a minute. That's
right. So we make sure that they get home first, and then we worry about money second. And we've just, I think our for-profit mind says that's insane. What do you mean you just let people pay you whenever? And that's not our standard MO. But if money comes up, because a lot of times people are forced to use our service. They're at a bar. They say, hey, you can't drive. We're going to call you a taxi. Nope, I don't want to leave my car. Fine, we'll call you a SafeRide. And, they're arguing, I'm not drunk. And we've all seen the drunk person that's not drunk. And
it just goes back to the whole career thing. Like, that's the part that really sticks out to me is it's like, my wife's a nurse. It would wreck her. I obviously have my own professional career as a small business. Like, I can't afford to be the mugshot in the Sandy Springs patch or whatever it is.
Right. Or you're a school. You're a school teacher, whatever the case may be.
So the drunk person. So they've got the app now. They've been told that you exist. They're like, wow. They download the app amazingly. And how do they end up paying?
So the app is, for all intents and purposes, very similar to Uber and Lyft. So when you open up the app, you create an account, you put in your credit card information, you see a map, you see our cars on the map, you put in your pickup location, which GPS can determine your pickup, or you can type it in manually. You put in your drop off, and it's going to give you an estimate. And once you have the estimate, you can either go ahead and book the ride, or you can just cancel, and there's no obligation. And then when the ride comes into our system, we assign it to a driver, and then the driver, you start getting automated text messages telling you what your driver's name is, what their cell phone number. It gives you a picture of the driver. You can see their car coming to you on a map, so you're not how long until
just
they
like Uber.
Just like Uber or Lyft.
Okay.
You pay through the app. You rate the driver, stars. They rate you back and forth.
So, pay later though. I've just put my credit card information in the app. I've just got the estimate, and I've said I'm okay with the estimate.
Yep.
So what does paying it later mean?
Pay us later is just literally a problem-solving tool, and it's usually used to de-escalate situations. Like I said, most people are happy to pay for it, glad to pay for it. In pay us later only comes into play when it's relevant. When money becomes a concern, or somebody's too drunk to actually conduct business with us, or they're belligerent. Those are when pay us later. We say, you know what? Let's not worry about the money. Let's get you home. We'll talk about money tomorrow.
Okay.
And that really works very well, because they wake up the next day and they realize instead of being in jail or in trouble, they're in their bed, their car's in the driveway, and they perceive us as having their back. If you call a taxi and you don't pay, they're calling 911. And we don't want to do that. We want people to know that we've got their back, and that we're not all about money.
So let's paint that scenario then. So let's say we've got, we're at the bar and we're having a good time. Table next to us, somebody is definitely not able to drive. They're talking about leaving the bar, and we're like, no, don't do that. Let's get you at least a ride with, so I don't know this person, and they're too drunk to put in their credit card information. This is a pay later scenario.
Correct. I mean, we would just know, if somebody called and said, hey, we need to get this guy home. So
then I would call and say, hey, listen, I'm here at, whatever bar, Sandy Springs. I'm sitting here with, so-and-so. They're too drunk to drive. Can you come pick him up?
Mm-hmm. And generally that's going to be a bar manager, somebody, a staff person. We have had customers call for people, out of Good Samaritans, but generally they pay for it. We had a guy just say, hey, here's my credit card info. This guy shouldn't drive.
Get him,
I'm willing to pay for it. And this is a crazy story. So this guy gets into the car with our driver, and within 5 minutes, he starts physically assaulting our driver. To the point of where my driver pulled over the car and got out of the car. The guy jumps into the front seat, runs over 2 mailboxes, drives into a ditch, and gets arrested. And somebody else was paying for him to go home in his own car. And that's just a testament to how challenging alcohol consumption can be.
2 minutes. Wait, is it $2?
$2 a minute.
$2 a minute. So okay, does that count when the driver is now on the side of the road waiting for the cops to come? Did the till keep going?
That we call that a mission ride. So
that was definitely a mission ride.
But it's very rare that we don't get paid. It's just very rare. People wake up and they're so grateful they want to give us the fee.
I wasn't aware of your service before we met, and hearing what you do, it really needs to be out there. So I hope someone listening, if you're a bar owner or if you're somebody, and you notice someone has been drinking, there's no reason for anyone to risk their professional career, not to mention a DUI and all the costs that come with that.
And we have a program specifically for bars that allows them to create evidence through our program that they're a responsible server. Mm-hmm. So we give bars and restaurants lots of tools to minimize their liability, also to help expedite their service and make sure their customers' experience is a good one. A lot of times, if people that get a DUI, they rarely go back to the bar that they got the DUI from. There's that. So, and then when people know that they have SafeRide in place, generally they spend more money inside of the bar.
Oh yeah.
So it actually increases their income, by having our service available.
That's genius.
Yeah, you were telling us about what you provide the restaurant or bar owner.
Right. Yep, and we have signage that we offer them that goes up in their restrooms, and we have decal that goes by the door. We have content that goes on their drink menus or for their websites. We even have, reservation tools that they can embed into their website that allows people to directly put job information into it. And I guess the thing I wanted to point out that's different between Uber and SafeRide is we take phone calls. Your phone's dead. You don't have GPS. The app doesn't seem to work. You can dial our number and we can manually create a job ticket for you. It
just dawned on me too, in my mind, I'm like, well, if we were going to go out, my wife and I have always said, well, we'll just take Uber there and Uber back. Mm-hmm. But if you think about the cost, I would almost rather drive there and have someone just drive. It's going to be the same.
Yeah, you can listen to your own music. I think a lot of people are very proud of their cars. It's part of our persona and who we are, and you want to be seen in your ride. But I'm here in my ride, and now how do I get it home?
Yeah.
And they don't want to leave their prized possession in the parking lot all night. So
that's great. So I'm hoping somebody, that was always new. That was news to me. Nothing like the bagpipes. Well, so hey, listen, I want to back up on something. Mm-hmm. All right, so one of the things that I really admire you for, and one of the things that I picked up on as being a key part of your success story, is how well you pay attention to the market around you. You are very observant, and just listening to your story, and you only share with us a snippet starting from the limousine business to how you migrated into SafeRide.
Yes.
But reality is there's a whole chain behind that of just you paying attention, right? And so what I wanted to maybe talk to you a little about, if you can share with those who are listening, is what are some things that a business owner can be doing to be paying attention to the market, their market, as it changes? With the digital age, with the way things are going from a technology standpoint, so much is different from just 10 years ago. And a lot of folks are still doing it the way they were then.
Yeah, there's so much information out there to potentially consider. You have to come up with some creative ways to filter that information and get what's relevant to you and to your business, into your view for you to look at. And probably the greatest tool that I use is the Google News Alerts. And so most people aren't even familiar with it. It's not really a promoted concept of Google. But through Google News Alerts, all my competitors, I have a news alert set up for. So if anything hits the news or the internet that has my competitor's name in it, I get an email. People that I want to keep track of, anything that's important to me in my business at the time, the first thing I do is I set up a Google News Alert. So I've got real-time information about these important subjects coming to me directly. And that just allows me to keep my finger on the pulse of a lot of things without having to think about it.
Now, do those come to your email inbox?
Yeah,
or is
email,
that just a
boom.
feed
Yep.
somewhere?
Yep, you can set it up to where you're getting them real time as it happens, is what it's called, or I can get a weekly digest of all the stuff that comes in. That's probably my best secret of really keeping track of stuff. Obviously, I participate, in industry related stuff, and I'm very news oriented. I pay attention to the restaurant business and what's going on with that. There's numerous newsletters that are available, but that's it. Google News Alerts is probably my greatest tool. And as a nonprofit, we're very fortunate to have access to the full Google business suites that they donate.
Yeah.
So Google donates their entire business suite. We pay nothing. They give us a $10,000 a month Google AdWords budget that we don't pay for.
What?
And if we use up that $10,000 2 months in a row, they bump it to $40,000.
Whoa, wait a minute. You're saying that the nonprofit marketing budget is taken care of?
Through Google AdWords, yeah, that part of it. There's more to it than just AdWords, but yes. I pay nothing for Google AdWords. Zero.
Wow.
Yep.
What? All right.
We're definitely doing a
News.
second show with nonprofit.
News to me.
Yes. And so they're very generous. And so a lot of them, of the big tech guys are very generous. The only ones that frustrate me that really could help my business if they saw things the way Google sees things is Yelp. They won't even give me a hug. They won't even send me flowers. They do nothing.
Yeah, Yelp.
All they want's my money, and that I understand, but I don't want to get off on a Yelp bashing thing.
Well,
but they have the ability. Yelp has a great following, and they have a lot of tools that could help educate people about what we do. And they basically, if I don't pay them, they have zero interest in helping. Which whatever, I don't want.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about Yelp myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I try to talk to the CEO, and everybody's like, "Well, you can't talk to him." I'm like, what do you mean? Is he like a space alien? I mean, does he not speak English? Why can't I talk to the guy? Well, Jeremy, okay. Well, let me chat with Jeremy for a minute. I think I could probably flip him.
And that would be why someone is like, no, that's probably the CFO that's like, no, you can't talk to Jeremy.
Yeah. But anyways, so most businesses are very supportive of us, and we have access to so many resources that we just don't have to pay for because of the nonprofit status. So
Well, that's great.
I'm always amazed at what I can get given to the nonprofit if I just ask.
Switching gears again, something else that we talked about a little while back and when we first started chit-chatting was how important it was to be with your daughter. And something that you mentioned to me really stood out, and I'm pretty sure every small business owner would understand how difficult it is to run a small business and still be a part of the family in a meaningful way.
Yes.
Share with me kind of your perspective on that. And I mean, you even mentioned that was one of the questions that you were asking as you were growing up into your entrepreneurship.
Yes. So, as you become an entrepreneur, I think most entrepreneurs read about other autobiographies about other successful people, Andrew Carnegie or whatever you want to read, those kinds of things. And it was a common theme in most successful businessmen's lives that they regretted the amount of time that they didn't spend with their family and their children as they grew up, because they were so focused on the success of their business and the amount of time that it took and their commitment. And, I, for a long time, didn't think I was going to have children. And when I was 45, I found out I was going to have a child, and that caught me off guard. And I kind of saw that as my one shot of being a great dad. And I was pretty far along in the success of SafeRide, so I was able to hire people to take on a lot of the responsibilities that I had. And what you find out is that people just don't care about your business the way that you do. And that period of when she was born to kindergarten, I was able to spend a lot of time with her, but my business did suffer because I didn't have my eye on the ball. Other people's thoughts and philosophies and methods got woven into what I had set up, and it really hurt the business. And I had to really kind of, okay, she's in school now, and I need to get back focused on that. And I'm very fortunate that it didn't take the business all the way down. I would attribute part of that to the fact that it was nonprofit that allowed it to survive. That
right. It gave you better margins,
yes.
is what you were saying.
Well, that, and also combined with my daughter being born in 2010 and Uber and Lyft's rise.
Oh, right.
Those two things combined really drove my business down, and I had to figure out how to resolve that loss of half of my business. I mean, most business, if you lose half your business, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really sustain that. And I was able to manage to get through that. I had to rethink everything. I often use the analogy that my thinking was very analog. Office, computers, phones, and et cetera, voice over IP, the cloud, apps, that wasn't even a part of my thinking. So I had to really take a step back, look at technology, figure out how to weave that into what I was doing. I was spending money on office space that I didn't need because I had people working out of their house instead of physically there. So I was able to go from a 2,000 square foot office to where our entire operation is running out of 800 square feet right now. But I've got an office in my home and everything, and all of our phones are connected through voice over IP. You don't need it. You
figure out that and that was part of what I had picked up on about you paying attention, is that, I mean, here's one of those things that you couldn't have said, oh yeah, in 5 years Uber and Lyft are going to take half my business. But the reality was that just showed up.
Correct.
The market just changed.
Correct.
Well, I mean, that happened to a taxi driver. I mean, we still hear the pains that they've gone through with this. Literally, it's like, poof, here it is, and it's a complete disruption.
There were two huge mistakes that I made in the case of rideshare. The first one was discarding the possibility of it even existing here in Atlanta. When I first started doing SafeRide in 2000, I was attacked by the taxi industry. Mm-hmm. I had the director of the taxi limousine division of the Atlanta Police Department call me personally to tell me to cease and desist. I didn't get a letter. They called me, you need to stop doing this. You're operating an illegal taxi. And I'm like, well, no, it's a driver rental business. I don't even own cars. In fact, you've got to have a car just to even use my service. Took a couple of weeks of legal chat to get that straightened out. In the end, I got accommodation for my good works in the community from Atlanta City Council. But it took them a second to kind of understand what it was that we did, and to realize I wasn't in the vehicle for hire. So the technical description for taxi is vehicle for hire.
Okay.
I'm driver for hire. I just rent drivers to people on demand and by the hour. That's in essence my description. And so when Uber and Lyft, I hear the word Uber for the first time and somebody starts explaining it to me, I just laughed at it. I said, there's zero chance that that's going to happen here in Atlanta.
Because that was for sure a vehicle for hire.
Absolutely. It is the taxi. Right. Yeah. It is. So I totally shoot it away and didn't even don't even want to talk about it. It's not going to happen here.
Yeah, good luck.
I was wrong. That was one. And then the second thing was thinking that rideshare had no relevance to the nonprofit mission. And the mission of the nonprofit is simply to proactively prevent all types of impaired driving.
Sure.
So if you don't have a car, you can't drink and drive. So that's not relevant to me. So
you're protecting the community.
Correct.
You're protecting people who are just
correct.
Normal taxpayers.
About a year ago, there was an article in the Atlanta Journal where there was numerous DUI attorneys complaining how their business had been cut in half because of rideshare. So that just, again, I was wrong.
So that was go back on that.
Right.
Say that again.
So DUI attorneys were complaining about the rideshare business because it had cut their business in half.
How were they complaining? I'm just curious. Was this like a vocal?
Well, they were being interviewed, and they were pointing out, hey, our business is cut in half, and the reason is because of Uber and Lyft are driving people to the bar and back home.
Yeah, right.
So if Uber drives you home and back, that cut me out of the picture completely.
Right.
So that that my service became irrelevant at that point, which was an issue. But when I read that, I took a step back and I said, wow, maybe I need to run my own rideshare. Maybe I need to get into that business, because if rideshare furthers my mission, now it became of interest to me, and I took a different approach and different thought. And we ultimately built out our application to accommodate rideshare. So there's some other obstacles with insurance and stuff like that and funding that I need to overcome before I can open up my own rideshare. And people are like, well, how are you going to compete with Uber and Lyft? And I'm like, well, you know what? There's Home Depot and there's Lowe's, but you know what? There's Ace Hardware too.
Yeah.
And I want to be the Ace Hardware.
And that's a in development.
Correct. That is in development, right? We're not in the rideshare business.
That's not currently what SafeRide is all about. But that is and you shared, I was lucky to kind of hear some of your thoughts around the internals of how that comes together.
That's correct.
And phenomenal idea. I think that you're going to compete just fine. But kind of getting back to where we are right here in this conversation about the podcast, what is something that you want a small business owner to walk away from this? And I know we've hit multiple points where I would say is relevant, but what is something that you would pass on? And let's say, for instance, your daughter is now 8.
Yeah.
So let's put her as a future entrepreneur. What would you want her to learn from you? What do you want to impart in her life as she grows up?
Some big ones that I really put out there is embrace your mistakes and failures. Don't view them as, don't judge it yourself and your overall talent and skill level based on it. Embrace those. Look forward to them. I mean, if you aren't failing and you aren't making mistakes, then you're probably not learning and you're probably not looking at the right things. And when those things do appear, you need to understand them, break them down, figure it out, and make adjustments and move forward. And that's how I've been able to fine-tune our model over the years. So what I was doing in the early 2000s to where I am rolling up towards 2020 are night and day. But the end result is still the same. I was driving people in their cars home in 2000. I'm still doing that now, but how that looks is completely different in my way of thinking about it. And if I viewed my mistakes as evidence of failure, that would have just been my downfall. And so I would encourage people to embrace your mistakes, embrace your failure, because those are key pieces to the learning process and the development of your business.
Yeah, I mean, that's
and
powerful.
of yourself.
And of yourself.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah,
that is absolutely correct, because as humans we're not short on mistakes. We've got plenty that we make.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And that's truly one of those things that it's the hallmark of the entrepreneur.
It really is.
To always be learning, paying attention to the market, learning from the mistakes and allowing them. I think you said that you were the sum. You are the sum total of all your mistakes and failures. So Yes.
It's just important on what you do with that information once you've gotten it. So that would be the one thing that I'd want my daughter to do, and then just to not stop and to believe in yourself, and and to pay attention to what's around you, and to never discredit. I mean, I think as humans we judge. I think it's just natural to judge. We just judge everything, everybody, and we make assumptions. You see somebody and the way they're dressed, the way they appear, you want to make assumptions about who they are and what they stand for, and et cetera. And I can't tell you, you are wrong most of the time. And through the community service process, I have an endless numbers of people coming through my door from all walks of life. And, I'll answer the phone sometimes and I hear some accent and I'm like, I really don't want to talk to this guy with this crazy accent. But in the end, I realized that was a mistake, and this guy had so much to bring to the table. So just don't judge.
Yeah.
Just roll with it and look and be observant and assume that they have something to help you with instead of something to irritate you with.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Lynn, is there anything that popped out to you today? I mean,
Oh my goodness.
There's so
The
many
entire
things.
The entire thing right from the beginning all the way to the end, and whether they were new or just strengthening what I feel about the sum total and wisdom. And, you know, I feel for you that you started a business, or that your daughter came into the picture after you became an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And, you know, that's been the opposite for me, and I don't think I could have done it had my career got going back when I had little ones or right before little ones. So I feel blessed that it worked out the way it did for me. And
yeah, because I don't think I could actually work for someone anyway at this point. If I had to go get a job, I would be in serious trouble, because I just think that my skill sets just don't really lend itself to working for someone.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very analytical. You know, I'm very opinionated. If I went to work for somebody, you know, all I'm going to do is analyze everything inside of their business and say, okay, this can be fixed and this and this. And business owners don't want to hear that. They just want you to do your job, and they want they want to write you a check and you go away. And I can't keep my.
And I do like too what you were talking about with the community service people and who comes your way. And, you know, people bring blessings every day.
They really do. I could just go on and on and on with story after story after story of this person that I met, and they came into my life, something bad happened to them, and as a result they ended up inside of my office. And it's interesting to watch how people take something like a DUI or some kind of legal trouble, and they end up really using that as a pivot point to propel themselves forward into what it is that they wanted to do. And, you know, it's interesting. And then I see others that the legal stuff just beats them down. And so you know, and you know, so if you make a mistake, just suck it up, learn, and move forward. So, and try not to do it again.
Yeah, try not to do it again. Well, just thank you so much for joining us today. It's truly been a pleasure, and we're going to have you back just to focus on, you know, the nonprofit arena, because you've just had a ton of experience in that way. And, so we're very excited.
And it's great to be able to do that, and I enjoy the opportunity to share.
Great. And Lynn, thank you for teaming up today and being a part of this.
Thank you, Corbin.
It's always nice to have you on. And of course, Corbin Cook, S&B Strategy Consultants. Tell us how someone can reach out to you. And I just want to throw out one more thing that we didn't cover today, is that you actually provide the service where someone has dental surgery.
Outpatient medical or dental procedures during the day. So, you know, when you have your teeth pulled or your eyes dilated, there's a medical impairment. And a lot of times having a friend or neighbor or relative drive you to the doctor or dentist and wait there is just a hassle. And so we are utilized in many cases for outpatient medical and dental procedures, to where you drive yourself to the appointment, but we drive you home. As technology's moved further and further ahead, outpatient has become more and more of a commonplace type thing. The procedures that people use. We do lots of what I call vehicle retrievals. So people leave their cars at the repair shop or at the office or at the sports venue, and we go get their car and bring it to them. So that's another thing that we do. We do driver rentals by the hour. So you have a group of people and nobody wants to be the designated driver, so you hire one of my drivers to, in essence, drive you. So we do things like winery and distillery and brewery tours. Okay. So you rent a driver, and we're driving them all over North Georgia to the winery events.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know people know that must exist, but to know how simple it is,
right?
It's, I think, surprising to me all of a sudden. Lynn, is this not news to you? Because I'm sure that you must have thought this existed, but
no, I didn't. I did not know it existed.
Yeah,
and it's brilliant.
Did you know this existed?
No.
Hey, are you ever going to drive home drunk because you left your car behind the bar?
Heck,
What's the point?
That law that just got updated a couple years ago, I was fully unaware of that. And it's not that I've never had a glass of wine, and I would have volunteered. Yeah, I had a glass of wine. at the restaurant.
Right, and that's that. Yeah,
That is.
Well,
Yeah.
and the main goal is not to lie to the police. Just simply
Don't
use
volunteer.
Yeah.
Don't-
Just
don't give them the evidence they need to
just
arrest
reach
you.
out, download the app. Remind us what the app is,
SafeRide Now, all one word, no
Okay.
spaces.
and they could probably find the phone number somewhere on the app if they needed to.
Yep, and on our website you can Google the word SafeRide. We're going to be the first one. SafeRideAmerica.org is the website, so they can go to the website and.
And the caller, the operator is American.
Oh yeah, ish.
Well, so we'll have that information, on the site and within the YouTube, as well.
Yep.
Lynn, how can someone reach out to you guys? Lynn and her group focus on tax preparation and tax planning throughout the year. So if you're a small business owner and you're not actually working with someone throughout the year to understand your taxes better, you're really missing out. And to include Lynn and Janet and just their team at Killingsworth Spencer in that mix is a critical component to a financial foundation for your business. So if you're thinking about doing that, or you think you're at the point where you are looking for more assistance, Lynn is someone to reach out to. How can they do that, Lynn?
Well, our website is KillingsworthSpencerLLC.com, and the phone number is 770-552-8286, and just ask for me, and I will make sure you're taken care of.
Great. And of course, with SME Strategy Consultants and Auxilium Associates, we are fractional executive leadership. So I provide the fractional financial component of your team. So fractional CFO, bookkeeping, accounting. We do all the math behind that and make sure that your business is looking smooth when it comes to your numbers. But not just that, it's really about understanding how to use those numbers to drive new initiatives, to drive new revenue streams, to make sure you understand what happens in the event of an economic downturn. A lot of people don't have that plan in place. So we do a lot of stuff on that end. So feel free to reach out to us. You can reach it at the website, SMB Strategy Consultants, or Corbin at 404-783-3305. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Enjoy it. Have a wonderful one, and go out and make a lot of money. All right, thanks.
Thank you.